Hiya folks, Doc here. Happy Easter to everybody. It's Easter weekend and I've been doing a little bit of screwing around in the shop, and I'm going to show you what I have been working on. I get a lot of questions on a pretty regular basis, both in the garage and on the YouTube page, about projects that are missing in action, so to speak. Ones that, I haven't touched on in a while, haven't updated in a while, are otherwise dead, missing. Some of them are even missing. And the reason that they're missing is sometimes I'll flush the toilet on a project and I'll forget to update you, the viewer. And I apologize for that. I'm still getting somewhat used to the whole YouTube experience, living my life in front of a camera as far as this stuff goes. Gone are the days where I just did what I was doing, and that's pretty much that. I do tend to forget that there's 12,000 of you paying attention. Thank you very much. And y'all have seen a video in the past on a machine and you say, hey Doc, what's up with this machine? And I find myself thinking, well shoot, I sold that 2 years ago. Ugh. So anyways, today we're going to talk about some of these projects. This one in specific. Stick around and I'll show you what I got going on. Alrighty, so projects come and projects go, and I need to update you all a little bit more frequently, especially when projects go, or when a project is going nowhere, as the case is sometimes. One of the builds, for example, being the golf cart. The weather was turning like crap for the winter. I stuck the engine in. I called it good for the winter because, trying to get that thing rolled into the shop right now would be a nightmare. And so there it just sits. It's in limbo, waiting for a nicer day for me to do something with it. People have asked about Reactor, my go-kart. When I had the tumor appear on my kidney, Reactor was about 90% done, 95% done, and I haven't touched it since. And that might be a bit of a psychological block, because it was a spooky time in my life. I'm going to try and dig that out this summer and finish it up. I've got a CVT for it now. I got to plumb the fuel system. I've got to buy a jetting kit for the Mikuni carburetor that's on it, and it should be good to go from there, aside from some lubrication and some air in the tires and junk like that. Kaiser's another one. The two-seat side-by-side diesel-powered thing. That's been kind of sitting in limbo because, frankly, it's a daunting project, and once I get into it, I'm into it. It's going to take over all the shop, and it's going to be quite involved. I know I've gone over the project plan with you before. Long story short, this isn't something I can just push in the shop, work on for 2 hours, and push out of the shop. And it's the work on it for an hour or two that's kind of the problem. I do have a full-time job. I'm in construction. I'm in renovation. And quite often, I only get an hour or two in the evening where I've got the time, patience, inclination, energy, parts, push something into the shop, work on it for a little while, and push it out again. And that's about as good as it gets sometimes. I work full-time. I've got a family, the whole shooting match. It's life, what can I say? But anyways, on to what we're talking about today. Today, I'm going to briefly revisit what this is. And what this is a John Deere, I think it's a 170. You guys might remember a video a while back where I showed 2 of them. And one of them looked kind of like this, and the other one kind of did not. And the plan was to build a racer for my older son, a super stock class racer, which is more or less stock, pulley swap, some fine tuning from there, not much else. And we did in fact build it. I'll show it to you. It's outside, getting kind of weathered on at the moment. We only had the opportunity to run in one event last year, and my son ran in 2 heats, and he ran 3rd place both heats. Not bad for his first time out. He didn't crash, he didn't lose it, he didn't do anything dumb, and he managed to place both times, so I'll give him full credit for that. It was a fun experience, and he might continue on, so we might re-gear it. We were geared a little low for what we were up against. We kind of went in uninformed, threw the dice, came up geared a little bit low, so he didn't quite have enough speed to pick up any positions. So, 3rd place, twice, 2 heats, 2 runs, no experience, no practice. Not bad. This was the other John Deere that we were building. This was for my younger son, and my younger son decided he wanted an off-roader, which is wonderful. You know, I do a lot of that. And we started the build. A lot of the wrenching he was doing himself. I did the paint, although the weather and the pine trees outside have kind of gotten the best of it. There's sap everywhere, which is why the Sprocket's garage graphic is no longer on the hood. It was covered in sap. I peeled it off. I figured on replacing it. But my son lost interest. And since he lost interest, I've got this machine sitting around, or this pile of parts as the case may be. And somebody put up an ad recently looking for a running off-roader type machine. And they were offering something in trade for it, and I'll get to that something in trade on the video I cut when I receive it. And I figured, okay, well, I'm going to take this pile of parts, because it was, you know, it hadn't even been reassembled yet, and I'm going to put it back together, and I'm going to make it functional, and I'm going to trade it off. So that's what's going on here today, is I'm putting the finishing touches on getting this damn thing together so I can get rid of it. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a John Deere 170. Darned if I can remember the year, and I guess it doesn't much matter. As you can see, the factory headlight unit is out. That was all cracked and beaten to rat crap. So I bought my son some LED lights, and he slammed those in there just by bolting them to the grill. The flush mount option seemed like the simplest solution, and it worked. The front tires are Carlisle Snow Hogs, 480 by 4 by 8, and I had to tube them. They were leaking. And I'm not really sure why. I did find a couple of little cracks in them. They were very minor, but instead of fighting the leak, and you all know that I'm fundamentally opposed to putting goo in tires, I just tubed them. You know, it takes a couple of minutes to break them down, put a tube in, no big deal, problem solved. The rear tires, you'll probably recognize, they were on mule for a while there. I'm going to miss them. They're 2211-8. Kenda Scorpions, I do believe, and they've got that nifty kind of half-egg tread pattern on them with knobbies. They're good tires. I'm going to be sad to see them go. Those of you that have been paying attention have probably noticed that they're sitting on normal lawn tractor rims now, and that's because I changed transaxles. Basically, it worked like this. Sitting right here in a pile under the bench is the MST 206. That has the dock locker in it, the dock locker 2.0 as a matter of fact, and those are the hubs that I had on it, 4-bolt hubs, and of course I had 4-bolt rims. Now this transaxle here, you're going to be pretty hard pressed to pry out of my hands. It's a little bit of innovation on my part, I suppose. So what I wound up doing is taking that out and swapping in a regular MST 206. But I did have to crack them open because my spare MST had the long shift shaft on it, and I needed the short one in that John Deere, so I had to not only re them, but I had to swap out the shift shafts. Now, as you know, I don't normally like welding spider gears and stuff in transaxles, but I figured since I had to crack it open anyways, and the recipient of this fine machine was asking, you know, if I could somehow lock the transaxle on the cheap and easy, just so it would be already locked for him. So I figured, okay, well, I had it open. I had to open it and change shafts out anyways, so I just welded the spiders to the pins, and I said, okay, no warranty expressed or implied. Cool, good, done. So that is why we're looking at regular lawn tractor rims there, and it's probably too dark to shoot underneath, but I'm going to try anyways, and you can see there is no yellow transaxle anywhere. There's just your standard MST. A tape measure just committed suicide. Awesome! And it's welded up. So I've got on the fender the shift pattern just marked out for him. You know, he can figure out the rest for himself. Tire clearance is a bit of a concern, and it could probably use a bit more trimming, and that's after lifting the fenders about 3/4 of an inch at the back. I put some spacers in. When I did the final assembly, I realized, oh my, they're touching. Well, we can't have them touching. As you can see, the paint is not holding up particularly well. This fender pan was in really bad shape, and my son spray bombed a couple of coats of white over it, and it looks like the prior coat is continuing to flake off. So I don't know, somebody should give this a serious wire wheeling and a sanding and do it again. But what the heck, the object of this game was to get this machine running and intact, and that it is. So what we have done is we've got, I think, a 6-inch pulley on the transaxle, and we did wind up swapping out Oh yeah, it's dark under there. I gotta work on lighting. I think that's a 4.5 up front. But it's a little bit faster than stock. Runs, drives, stops. The brakes actually work exceptionally well on this thing. And as you can see, it's got an exhaust stack on it. You guys know I'm not nuts about stacks, but here's the deal. The exhaust port faces right at the side of that fiberglass hood, and you couldn't really run it that way. So I said, okay, fine, I'll make some sort of quick and easy exhaust. You can choose to keep it, you can choose to ditch it. That's why it's not braced, because it's probably temporary at best. And that's why you see these absolutely brutal bird welds on here. That booger welding there came off that Massey Ferguson that we got from my older son. That was the exhaust stack that was on the engine. And it's what was there. I had it, so okay, let's adapt it on. So as you can see, I made a cutout in the hood, just so that, you know, the hood could be opened and closed without interfering with the stack. And there's the engine. Alright, so what's the story on the engine? Well, the original engine in this thing was a Kawasaki, and they're pretty good engines, but the one that was in there was really tired and clapped out. So we ended up getting rid of it, and this here was the original engine that came when I got Fugazi. It does run, it runs pretty well. It could probably use a little bit of love still, but it's not what I wanted. You guys know I love my Vanguards. I had a Vanguard, so the first thing I did was rip this out and put a Vanguard in. That left me with this engine kicking around. Now, this engine, the muffler was rotted off, hence my comments about not having an exhaust. So the flange, the exhaust port just points right out at the side of the hood there, so I just welded the stack on, call it good. Buddy can change what he wants to change. And, you know, with the engine bolted on, that's all fine and good. And you can see this fuel pump that I have here. And the fuel pump is because the tank is in the back underneath the seat. Presto bingo, there it is. So of course you need a way of getting fuel up. Now this is where things get interesting. This engine originally had no provision for a fuel pump. That's right, no pulse port on it anywhere. So what did I do? Well, I'll show you what I did. Yep, you're seeing that right. I drilled a hole in the dipstick tube near the top, screwed in a barb fitting, and there is the signal hose for the fuel pump. Does it work? Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, there are some machines where that's factory. There's a little plastic nipple sticking out of the side of the dipstick tube, and that's where it takes the pulse from. You can do that too. It's not as weird as it sounds. You know, you've got the crankcase pulses coming and going with the piston, and even up in the dipstick tube, those pulses exist. You can take it from there. I recommend taking it from higher up the tube. Less of a chance of getting oil in your pulse line, and of course when you're pouring oil in, I would recommend using a funnel just so that it goes past that fitting without getting into the fitting. But the long and the short of it is, it does work well. I have yet to put, this is part of my hit list to finish up here, is to put a hose clamp on there and to finish clamping up all the other line locations that are not yet clamped. I had to buy a fistful of hose clamps, and that is probably the simplest way of doing it. You're just drilling into plastic. It's easy as pies. It does work. Of course, you want to make sure that your dipstick tube is decently sealed to keep that signal as strong as possible, and of course to avoid getting oil all over the place. But it does work. As you all can tell, it's windy as hell out here, so I'm not going to waste a lot of time shooting it here because I don't want you to have to put up with the wind for too long. But there's the little racer that we built for Gary. Or should I say Gary built. Pretty much I had very little to do with it. Just trying to remember some of the basic specs that have gone in. It's still got the factory Kawasaki engine, and it's got a brand new set of 15.66 turfs on the front, and a pretty good set of 16.658s on the rear, also turfs. It's got an MST 206 transaxle that is currently unlocked. The rules we were building to indicated that it should be unlocked by the looks of it. And it's got one of those nice padded pan seats on it. And not much to say other than that. You know, we had to have a grab handle on it, according to the rules. The rules indicated a hand throttle, but it didn't say where. So after some plotting and scheming, Gary decided he'd like the hand throttle on the handle, on the grab bar. And part of the reason for that, and I know people have done this, but a hand throttle on a steering wheel that still has full rotation is going to, you know, leave cable nightmares all over the place. So he decided to put it on the grab handle, and that kind of worked out for him. He liked that. A couple of words from some of our sponsors here. City Slicker Builds on YouTube, Weatherall Maple Farms on YouTube, Mower Outlaw on YouTube. What have we got? We've got the All-Terrain Lawn Tractor Forum sticker on here. Yes, we do. And of course, we've got your Sprocket stickers on there. I don't know who that guy is. DIYGokarts.com. That's a great forum if you're into go-karts. I used to pretty much live there. I'm not so active anymore. And we've got the push button starter here, and this is actually his ignition switch, and the tethered kill switch plug right there, choke lever up here. See if I can get to the front. Oh, look at that, another sticker, Keystone Motorsports. Good dudes, some neat ideas. Alright, so the view from the front isn't particularly special, but I will show you what's under the hood. In order to get the seat down as low as possible, that tree's killing me. In order to get the seat down as low as possible, we just bolted it right to the fender pan, which means that there's no fuel tank access. So we got rid of the fuel tank under the seat and moved it up to the front. Right there. And that's a gas tank off an old 4-horse clone. And Gary welded some tabs to some bars and bolted the bars in. And presto bingo, the rules didn't say anything about we couldn't have a fuel tank way up front there. So that's what we did to eliminate the tank under the seat. As you can see, Gary welded some tabs in there to keep the axle from articulating. And this thing runs like a dream. It runs great. Had a lot of fun with it. We're gonna update the pulley ratio, and hopefully he'll get a couple of runs in this season. So getting back to the whole project thing, like I said, wife, kids, family, job, and I get to this stuff when I get to it. Some of the projects are bigger and more daunting than others, and some of them I just couldn't be bothered with yet. They're not priorities. Some of the priorities kind of get in the way. Fugazi, for example, is something that I was working on for a straight stretch. And that pretty much meant that I couldn't work on other things at the same time because it just would get too chaotic in the shop. You know, I've got bits of Fugazi all over the place. I'm not going to get into something else. Another prime example of that actually was Diesel Weasel. When I was working on Weasel, nothing else was going on. I was under such a crunch to get it done that I couldn't even think of getting into something else. One of the projects that I know that you guys want to see that I haven't touched, you know, I really haven't touched yet, is Suburban Gorilla. And that would be the diesel-powered Sears Suburban. And up until recently, I was looking at putting my Kubota Z400 in it, and I was looking at belt and pulley clearance issues, sinking it down in the frame, and that kind of turned into, well, if I'm not going to have clearance like that, what if I turn the engine 90 degrees and use a right-angle gearbox to bring the drive around to where I want to have it? And so that just kind of left me with a bit of a head-scratcher. Sometimes doing something once is bad enough, doing it twice sucks, so I really don't like putting something together in order to determine that I'm not happy with it and I gotta rip it apart again. That of course happens, but if we can avoid it, we can avoid it, and that's one of the reasons, for example, that the Kaiser build still hasn't gotten anywhere, because there's, you know, 10 ways to do it, and the question is which way am I gonna do it? And it's really not a matter of, in this particular case, what does somebody else want? It's just a simple matter of what's going to leave me the happiest with the results. So I've got some killer ideas, and it's just a question of when I finally settle on how exactly I'm going to do it, that's when I'm going to get to it. And it's not like I'm in need of this machine. There's no rush to build it. There's no contest going on. You know, there's no deadline for it for whatever reason. It's a when I get to it. In the meantime, I'm kind of concentrating on the things I need to get to. And of all of all the stuff that I wanted to do to Fugazi in the off season for the upcoming riding season, I basically haven't touched it after that little brake debacle. I'm still reweighing my options out, because damn it, I'm going to have to do it again, and I don't want to do it again. I should actually expand a little bit on this whole being happy with the way something turns out. There's a bit of a balance that I have to run, and a lot of the guys on YouTube have to run, and that is, when we build something, it's got to be to our satisfaction to a certain degree. Obviously, I've got to be happy with it. by the same token, we're putting this out for viewers. And although at the end of the day, my happiness is what counts, you know, I do realize, and they do realize, that you, the viewer, are going to want to see something that's functional, something that maybe looks half decent, something that works well, gets a little bit of attention. You know, for some people it's form, for some people it's function, for some people it's a combination of the two. And sure enough, we could just whack a bunch of parts together and come up with some sort of, I don't know, front wheel drive forklift looking thing. But is that going to do what I want it to do? Probably not. Is that going to please the masses? Again, probably not. Since beginning this whole YouTube adventure, it's been 50% about what I want to accomplish and 50% about, well, I guess the folks are going to want to see this, this, and this. That's why last summer I did, you know, more riding videos, and this summer, you know, we've got even more planned because you, the viewer, has kind of made it clear, okay, I want to see this, and I want to see this, and I want to see this. And we all know darn good and well you want to see action videos of this stuff getting beaten on after we build it to see if it'll actually perform up to expectations and not just riding around in a circle in the backyard going, yep, it works. So that's, I hope that clarifies things just a little bit. It's partially to satisfy myself and partially just to make sure the darn thing is going to work as advertised. There you have it, folks. This is what's going on with this particular John Deere. It's going out the door. Guess I'm going to miss it, but it's not doing me any good sitting here in the garage. So, this will be the last you see of it, unless the new owner decides to shoot some video. Who knows? We'll see. I hope he makes something of it. I hope he improves it, and I hope he has a hell of a lot of fun with it, because what I'm getting in trade is definitely going to appear in some videos. So, thanks for tuning into Sprocket's Garage on YouTube. Until next time, take care of yourself.
I didn't come dead last.
Yay! Hey, 3 out of 4 ain't bad.
Yeah, that's not bad.
How do you feel?
Really good.
Awesome.